All right, welcome back to the Dream Catchers Fishing Channel. Austin here, hanging out with my guy, Nick, you dang stud. How are you doing, buddy?
Doing good. How are you, Austin?
Doing well, doing well. Nick wanted to talk about the Deps 250 today, so we're going to do kind of an informative video, and yeah, I'm really excited about it. He's going to fire a bunch of questions at me. We're going to have some dialogue and talk about it. Yeah, man.
See what we can make happen here.
Hey, first off, tell people about your YouTube channel.
All right, YouTube channel called Big Bass Mountain. Check it out. Just a couple days ago, started a series, little mini series, talking about how to get set up throwing 8-inch huds, how to get bigger and better bites throwing 8-inch huds. So go
you
check
better
it out.
you better have thrown Dream Catcher some love.
Oh yeah, I did. Oh,
Okay,
believe me.
that's
Oh,
my
believe me,
guy.
I
He's
did.
been
I
a
did.
faithful customer
I
for a
did.
long time. Young guy that I really like to spend time with and pour into and kind of teach. And anyways, today we're gonna be talking about Deps 250. So fire away. What you got?
All right, so let's talk combos first. So
Okay.
ideal combo for a Deps 250.
Yeah, so when I think about a Deps 250 in my life, I've used a bunch of different combos. I've used the Akuma Guide Select. I've used the Daiwa DXSB 3 to 10 ounce. I've used the Elite Swimbait rod, the Ish Monroe Daiwa Elite Swimbait rod. And now I'm throwing an 807 Dobbins, and I'm throwing an 867 Dobbins. I've used all of them, and truthfully, I like all of them. I'm not one of these guys that's like, a lot of guys are like, oh, I've got one rod for this one technique. My rods, I like them to be stiff enough for a single hook, like a HUD, and I like them to be parabolic enough to keep treble hooked baits pinned in the mouths of big ones.
Yeah.
So I've had great success with all of those rods. I'm not one of these guys that it has to be done like this or it's wrong.
Right.
It's one of my least favorite things about the swim bait industry. A lot of guys say, hey, if it's not like this, you're doing it wrong. There's multiple ways to skin the cat, but all three of those combos. But the other thing is, I have kind of grown in my liking to bigger reels. I originally was throwing an HD, Tatula HD, which is a 200 size reel. Then they came out with the 150s. I used the Tatula 150. Then they went to the Tatula 200, which just had the deeper spool, same 150 frame. And then I'm actually using the Daiwa Tatula 300s. I got them over there on the rod, but I really like the 300s.
Yeah, so I'm really about the same. 867 has always been my favorite setup for throwing a Deps 250, most because it's strong enough, and like we were talking about the other day with accuracy, it's not about the rod, it's about how much and how comfortable you are with casting a big bait with a big rod. So like you said, a Tatula 300 is a great way to go about doing it. If you want to start small though, that 8-foot Ish Monroe series is a really good rod for throwing Deps 250s.
It's rated for up to 9 ounces.
Yeah.
I like to park my rods, you know, like I like to park the baits right in between what they're rated for. So if it's rated for like a 3 to 9, I really like a 6 ounce bait, which is where the 250 falls, or a 3 to 10. You know, where if I'm throwing a Hinkle or something bigger, the ABT 12-inch Suicide Guy, any of those super huge baits, or just a heavy bait, you know, I like going with that 867 or even a bigger rod.
Yeah, but it's just there's a lot of different ways you can go about doing it. And I know, and Dustin said, and you had mentioned it in one of the other videos, you should fish the nicest equipment you can afford. Fury is a great rod.
Oh yeah, it's an
amazing rod.
The Dobbins Fury.
Oh yeah, a Dobbins Fury is
it's like $130 price point.
I think something like that. But it's a great rod, especially for throwing these big baits.
Yeah.
So you've got the combo set up.
Yep.
You've got everything ready for throwing them.
Yep.
Is there specific locations in certain seasons that you mostly focus on with the 250?
Yeah, so a lot of people catch a lot of big bass on a 250, and I'm talking about giants, like 8+ pound fish. I catch big fish, but we're in the Carolinas. Like, how many 10-pounders have been caught the last few years in the Carolinas? I actually, I don't know of any.
No,
I know North Georgia.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it, you know, really close in proximity to us. So, you know, there's a lot of those 5 to 7 pounders. I catch a lot of those. So with that, when you say seasons, I do a lot of shallow fishing. I like paralleling docks, paralleling laydowns, cruising the bank. I like sight fishing. Sometimes I even like, you know, visually hunting the fish. My biggest fish last year on a 250 was right at 7 pounds from a lake not too far from the shop. I actually saw it cruising up the bank. I threw it to the inside side of it, and he ambushed it. But, you know, in the colder water of the winter, I'll say this, I need more discipline to sink this down out deep off of points, on shoals, on offshore brush, because those big fish, I think, live in deeper water. I've talked to Dustin about it, a.k.a. Swimbait, everything on the gram. He's
Go
a
follow.
stud. He's a stud. we both agreed, hey, we think we're fishing glide baits too shallow, and that's why we're only getting 7-pound bites, 6-pound bites, a lot of 5-pound bites. We need to get out there and experiment deep. So I stay shallow.
Yeah. So shallow is an awesome way to go.
Yeah.
But I think if you also can train yourself and discipline yourself to throw it out deep, your reward is going to be a lot higher. I think you're going to, again, like and I talked about this in one of the Huddleston videos, is you're going to get less bites if you're throwing this thing out deep, but the reward is going to be.
Yeah, the quality is definitely going to be there. And the thing is, with a glide bait specifically, it's just such an addictive way to fish.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing better than seeing the fish, and that's when you're glide bait fishing. Everything's so interactive and visual, and that's why I'm addicted to seeing them up shallow.
Yeah.
Eating this bait.
Exactly. So seasonal patterns, I think, is another way that we can go. That somebody, especially that's getting into throwing 250s, something that they should focus on. So I know for me, I pattern the fish a little bit differently. I actually start moving it faster and work myself slower. And I know a lot of people start slower and work their way faster. Is there a specific way that you like to move it and sort of figure out if you can pattern them in certain seasons?
Yeah, so for me, the Deps 250 is a tool in a toolbox. It's one bait.
Exactly.
So the thing I like about a 250 is it stays very vertical. When you fish it, it stays very vertical. Like a Gan craft tends to, have this kind of like it wants to go horizontal, which is nothing wrong. So for me, it's a tool in a toolbox. Sometimes when I fish this thing, I'm fishing it really fast. Sometimes I'm like, man, I'm not getting followers. Same deal. I need to slow it down. It's one of those things. I honestly just fish it. If I get any kind of follow or any kind of action, I can tell almost immediately, ooh, I need to slow this bait down. Because most fish, and don't get me wrong, a lot of times there is just one bite you're getting all day.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, if you just get one good follower and just kind of see his body language, like he was following way behind it and slow, you're like, maybe I need to slow my retrieve down and let it sink. If one comes after it and he gets it real fast and you're next to the boat and you kind of run out of space, I'm like, okay, maybe I am throwing it the right way. Maybe I need to back off these fish and let them follow it more.
Right.
So for me, there's multiple different retrieves on it. But man, it's a fun bait to throw.
Oh yeah, it's a great bait. So another reason I really like this one is because it's a really, really good search bait. You can throw this one shallow, you can throw it deep, and most of the time, since it's such a big bait, bass are going to be curious. They're curious by nature, and they're going to come up there, they're going to look at it, and you're going to be able to see how they're reacting to the bait, how they're reacting to the color, which we'll talk about here in just a second. But it's a really good search bait, and I think you can use it on a lot of different lakes, a lot of different regions too.
Yeah, when I think about glide bait fishing and when it excels, and if you're looking to book a trip with dream catchers, holler at us. It's going to be it's always kind of late March all the way through really the first week of June. I think is just like prime glide bait season. But when the fish are shallow, you're going to get followers. I get guys all the time. They say, hey, I'm getting into it. I'm a beginner. Which glide bait should I get? And they want to start out small. But I always encourage guys, bigger baits move more water. Mm-hmm. Moving more water means more followers. More followers means more bites. More bites means more fish landed. So a lot of guys want to start out with a small bait, but a small bait doesn't move as much water.
Exactly.
You don't get as many followers. Dude, I fished on the front of the boat one time with a fella. I said, I'm going to throw a 178, Gancraft 178, because it was a herring spawn, and I thought the 178 was more herring imitator. I got outfished from the back. He was throwing the Gancraft 230 Magnum. Mm-hmm. I got outfished like 9-2 that day, glide bait fishing. And I'm like, it forever in my mind was like, I just need to commit to the big bait. Right. That was a long time ago, but anyway.
And that is true. You do need to commit to it. You're not gonna get anywhere if you don't make yourself get comfortable with it.
A lot of guys think it's a magic lure.
Nah.
They're like, oh, I'm gonna go out. They see. This is the thing. Guys watch the YouTube videos and they're like, they don't understand that I went 3 hours without catching a fish, and I'm just putting in a highlight of one cast.
Exactly.
So they think, oh, one cast and I'm going to get a fish. And don't get me wrong, I've had it happen early in the morning on guide trips before where the dude does make one cast and catch a fish on glide bait.
Yeah.
But anyway,
you've got those freak accidents. That just tend to happen.
So what's next?
All right. So let's talk about color.
Okay.
So I don't believe color affects anything. I never have. Probably never will until something changes my mind. Yeah. So what's your standpoint on that?
This is the only Deps 250 that I have. I get a lot of baits in the store. I have a lot of baits personally. We sell them. It's part of our deal. We sell baits, right? But for me, when I think about color, I think about the light. When it's cloudy or overcast, I like something that'll absorb the light. So like a deep pearl or a bone. Right. That's what I throw when it's cloudy. And then when it's sunny, I like something that's highly reflective. this is the only bait I have right now. I custom painted this brown trout Deps 250. It has that kind of bone yellow in that pearl, so it absorbs the light in the clouds. But it's kind of hard to see maybe on camera, but you can see, man, when that light hits it, it has a lot of flash. So this color, I've caught a lot of fish in the clouds. I've caught a lot of fish in the sun. I think it's really hard to beat pearl because pearl does have a lot of flash in the sun, and it does absorb light when it's cloudy. So that's kind of my take on it. But I'm with you. I think a lot of times, I don't necessarily, like, I've caught big bass on rainbow trout lures in Chickamauga.
Exactly.
I've caught big bass at Smith Mountain Reservoir up in Virginia on rainbow trout lures. Those lakes don't have trout in them. You know, maybe way up the rivers, but down the main lake there's not. But I think a lot of times it's just the action, but I do think the visibility helps. Helps them see it and maybe track it, but a lot of times it's just the action of the bait.
And I think that's a really good point. It's not as much the color as it is the visibility. And I think especially, and a lot of guys, this is a good example. So for bed fishing, a lot of guys get hung up on, oh, white. Throwing a white bait, a lot of people think it's to the fishes or to our advantage because the fish sees it and they get curious. I've always been a firm believer it's really to our advantage because if you throw a green pumpkin jig in there, they're going to react the same way to it.
I actually think they react better to natural colors.
Yeah.
The only reason why we throw white is so it's
we
visible
can see
to
it.
us.
Yeah. So we can see it disappear and we can catch that fish. But another thing, you've got an OG and I've got the newer one. So let's talk about the differences with those. So there's a couple different things, especially on the OGs, that are a lot better. We were just talking about this one.
I won't even say a lot better.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think they're a lot better. I just prefer fishing them. The only thing they're honestly better in is durability. So the OG is a one resin bait. You can see the resin is it looks kind of like bone color, where this is injected plastic. So that's the reason why I like the OG's guiding. I have people just beat the fire out of my craft. So I just need stuff to be durable. But the OG is more tunable, and when I say that, I can add weight to it. I can take weight out of it. I can make it sink fast. I can make it flow. I can make it sink slow. You know, the other thing we were talking about is if I hold up like that, you can tell there's actually about 15 degrees more. And the reason why that skin doesn't come as far back with the OG, I could pull that skin back, that silicone skin, but it does have a very snapping wide glide. But the new ones, the plastic injected ones, still very smooth.
Oh yeah.
I own those too, and I've caught, in fact, the biggest bass I've ever caught on a Deps 250 was on the new style. But like I said, once I really kind of started playing with the OGs, they're just durable, and I get a lot of knuckleheads that I fish with that are going to cast it on docks and rocks and automobiles and anything, you know. So I've just got to have it more durable. But I like both of them. We sell obviously the new ones every once in a while. I get an OG in. We might custom paint it. We might sell it like it is. They're more expensive. Supply and demand, right?
Exactly.
There's less supply, which means what? Higher demand.
Exactly. People will buy them. So I think too. So we talked about how both of them smooth. They have a very smooth gliding action.
Smoothest glide bait there's ever been.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think the only thing that could possibly stand a chance against these is that Piz Shadley 2 that you have. That one's. If you haven't watched videos on that and watch Austin's video on it, it's a smooth gliding bait. It's extremely smooth. But I do think at the same time that not only can you have to fish these two baits a little bit differently. Do you agree?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think you fish them differently. I just think what you can do with them is a little different. So with the OG, I can fish deeper.
Exactly.
I can fish deeper because it sinks faster. You know, this sinks slower, so I'm going to tend to stay shallower with it. So, but really, that's the only thing different. I might be able, because it's heavier, I might be able to get a little quicker snaps without it wanting to rise up. You know, but for the most part, like I said, I've had so much success with the new Deps 250s. The differences are very minute to what you get as a final product, as in catches. I just don't think it makes that big of a difference.
Yeah. So we got really two more things, and this one I feel like a lot of people are curious about this one. I think this could be a tournament bait. I feel like this is something that you could go out there and, you know, let's say you look at your watch and it's 3 o'clock and you're like, all right, I've got 45 minutes till I got to get back to weigh-in. I'm going to tie this thing on, I'm going to put it in my hand, and I'm going to win by 7 pounds with the fish that I catch.
That's right.
So I think, and especially, I know a lot of tournament guys get hung up on smaller means more fish.
That's right.
And in some sense it does.
It does.
But in a tournament situation, you're not looking for those smaller fish. You're looking for that one kicker fish.
When I guide people, like this happens all the time. I'll guide people like a half-day trip. I'll start at 8 in the morning and go until noon, and then I'll have some time after the trip, and I'm like, let me see how many fish I can catch in just an hour, 2 hours. And multiple times, I've been able to put between 5 and 10 fish in the boat.
Exactly.
Literally in just 2 hours after my guide trip for the Deps 250. Like I said, a fish doesn't know how big it is.
Right.
So they instinctually just think, hey, there's an injured fish, I can eat it. They don't have a mirror, so they don't know how big they are.
Right.
If I wanted to pick a fight against Shaquille O'Neal, I have the mental ability. I've seen myself in a mirror. I know what I look like. I'm like, I'm probably going to get my tail whipped.
Exactly.
But fish don't operate like that. That's why you always see those videos of like a 15-inch bass and a 15-inch bass's mouth. They don't know how big they are. So it does get a lot of bites. And, I do think, dude, this thing catches a lot of 3 to 5 pounders because those fish are aggressive fish. And
those are the kicker fish that you want whenever you're in a tournament.
Well, especially, and once again, I think about high risk, high reward. If you're going out there and you're trying to catch 20 fish in a day, probably not the bait you're trying to throw.
Exactly.
But if you're trying to catch 4 to 7 or 8 fish a day and want to do something real special, and I'll say this, I have fished a Deps 250 all day in a tournament before. So it's the only bait I'm going to throw. They were on it. I weighed in 5 fish for 12.5 pounds.
Yeah, right there it is.
5 2.5 pound fish. I was like, I weighed in 5 2.5. I probably caught a dozen fish, and don't get me wrong, my biggest fish was probably like 3 1/4. But I weighed in 2 fish in my bag that were 175, and I had a ton that were that big, like almost 2 pounders. So it's crazy that small fish will eat the slam mess.
Oh yeah, I mean that's like when you were fishing with Oliver on Lake Hummel.
Yeah, on Lake Hummel.
Yeah. You need to, you need to book a trip because there's some big ones to be caught up, especially around here. But
I caught a dang 12-incher though.
A 12-incher.
It was literally 2 inches bigger than the Deps 250.
Yeah.
And smoked it. Had head shot and everything.
Yeah, and that brings us to the next one.
Yeah.
Let's talk about head hooks. Let's talk about hook placement. Why do we throw the head hooks is always the big question.
Yeah, so I actually think I was the originator of the head hook on a Deps 250.
Right.
I got the idea from throwing the ABT Homicide glides.
Right.
They had the nose hook, and I'm like, gosh, there's so many fish headshotting it. You think about it, it just goes down the hatch easier. So I'm like, what in the world's the deal? How can I do it? Well, this has a vertical line tie, so I've added a hyper wire size 4 and a size 1 treble hook. And dude, when they headshot it, they actually suck water through their gills so that hook swings in the inside of their mouth. Think about this. If there's 2 hooks, I'm adding 50% more hookup ratio. So now I've got a huge opportunity to catch fish. I was having so many 3, 4, 5 pounders. Headshot, not get hooked. Headshot, not get hooked. A 6 or 7's got a big enough mouth when they headshot it.
Yeah, they're going to get this.
They're going to get that hook, that's right. And then this one's going to swing and grab them behind the gill. But dude, I cannot tell you how many fish I've caught. And once again, those smaller fish too that are like, whoa, if I am going to eat that, I need a headshot this bait.
Right.
It needs a head hook.
Exactly.
And it helps. I mean, it's unbelievable the amount of people that send us pictures on Instagram that tag us and say, dude, thanks for telling me about the head hook. Would never have caught this 5, 6, 7 pounder if it wasn't for it. I mean, it just helps your catch ratio.
It does. And I think the big thing here, and you talked about this whenever you talked about the Homicide Glide, there's 3 main places that a fish is going to smack the bait. It's going to either headshot it, it's going to T-bone it, or it's going to tail swipe it back here.
Yep.
I do wish that this back here was just a little bit farther back.
Yeah.
But most of the time, they're going to hit it up top. They're going to hit it in the head.
I'll say this. I tend to see a lot of, I've caught a lot of spotted bass off of that hook because they'll come up and just swipe it. I've caught some monster spots that headshot it, but usually a largemouth is
good headshot.
It's gonna get those.
This right in here, the front half of the bait is really here. All right, so you can pick these baits up at dreamcatchersfishing.com.
Yep.
These are amazing baits, so let's just say that. And I would have been the first one a couple years back whenever I was real big into the Googans and the favorite rods, and I'm never going to spend that amount of money on a bait. $180 for a bait is just, it's insane.
Yeah.
And then I bought one and never looked back, and then you start putting more time and more effort into it, and then you start catching bigger and better fish, and it sort of puts the cherry on top of the cupcake for me.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Every time I'm throwing a big swim bait, every time I have a customer throwing a big swim bait, I'm like, hey, today might be a day where someone catches a double digit. I honestly feel that every time I throw it, and that's kind of the allure. And I tell people all the time, they're like, man, that's way too much for a bait. Put a price tag on a 10-pounder.
Exactly.
Put a price tag on a PB.
You
can. No, there's nothing. Listen. Life, at the end of the day, life is about making memories and sharing stories. And for me, these baits provide that opportunity.
Exactly.
Man, I can
yeah.
tell so many stories, and
Yeah.
I've made so many memories with guys throwing these big baits, and to me, that's what it's all about. So yeah, you can get these baits at dreamcatchersfishing.com. Check out my boy's YouTube channel. Throw it at them.
Big Bass Mountain.
So appreciate you guys watching. Dreamcatchers out. See ya.